So here I am with the incredible balloon artist Matt Falloon. How you doing, Matt?
I'm great. Thank you for incredible. Wow, thank you. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, look, I'm going pretty good despite the freezing cold weather. Not that I can complain being Melbourne, it doesn't necessarily snow, but yeah, look, I'm doing okay, but happy to be speaking to you. So, Matt, you're from Sydney, yes?
I am absolutely sunny Sydney, but I'm in the Blue Mountains, which is about an hour out of Sydney. I drive past the Welcome to Sydney sign as I head back into work, and yeah, beautiful part of the world though. Nice and cold, good for my balloons. Keeps my balloons well climatized.
Well, that's very important, especially for someone that makes a living out of balloons. Can you tell us a bit about what you do, Matt?
So I am a balloon entertainer. I try to avoid the term balloon twister just because that sort of suggests to the customers someone who's going to stand in the corner and twist balloons. Dare I say it, much like a face painter sits in the corner and paints faces. So really try to push the entertaining side of it, and really interact with the kids and joke with them and do a whole bunch of silly stuff with the sculptures that I'm creating and really try to work a lot of fun into what I do, as well as I do a proper sort of stand-up show as well with my balloons.
Okay, so you're suggesting more of an entertainment rather than just a flat service of the balloon guy in the corner making dogs. Sounds
Yeah.
like you're creating a bit of a difference for yourself.
Well, yeah, it's about creating a difference for the customer as well. Just by using a different term, you instantly sort of put yourself into a different field. So yeah, instead of a balloon twister or a balloon artist, I call myself a balloon entertainer, which I don't know if it's a front of mind sort of thing, but I like to think that catches customers off guard and sort of puts a different term into their consciousness and makes them think about a little bit more about doing something different.
So, do customers come to you with the idea in mind that you are going to stand in the corner, or do you have a way of advertising yourself so that they know that you're more than just the standard balloon artist?
It's kind of hard to say. I'm sure I've got a lot of customers who do just sort of come out of the blue and expect the standard balloon twister. But most of my work these days is word of mouth. So a lot of people who end up seeing me at a booking have seen me before and book me because they know what I do and how I entertain.
Oh, wow, that's really lovely. So, you must have been doing this for a while then. What got you started into balloons?
Well, I did balloons. So I've been working with balloons for about 17 years, but the first 12 years of that was doing magic. So I was a magician, oh gosh, ever since sort of high school. It's always something that I sort of played with being the drama kid. And then, yeah, it's only recently, only within the last 4 or 5 years that I've moved on and discovered balloons. And once again, just in the quest to be different, moved away from magic and into balloons. But it's great because it's given me a lot of cross pollination. So a lot of stuff that I learnt from the magic world that if you just jump straight into balloon twisting, you may not pick up. I've been able to take that across into this new market of mine.
Oh, that's really interesting. So, you started off with magic, moved on to balloons. I'm just imagining going to a social occasion with you, Matt, and people must ask you all the time, what do you do? And your answer might be, I'm a balloon entertainer. What kind of reaction do you get from your friends and family having chosen that path in life to be a balloon entertainer?
Oh, my favorite response ever is when you say, I'm a kids entertainer, and they say, what, like a clown? It's sort of, apologies to any clowns out there, but yeah, that's the number one reaction that I get. Yeah, to be honest, it is kind of hard to be taken seriously, but that's when it's handy to have a folio of what I've done sort of sitting there on my phone. So you can pull it up and you can show them what you do and make it obvious that it's a little bit more than your dogs and swords and yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I know what you mean when the people they go, "Oh, you mean like a clown or something?" And it, balloon art has come such a long way, and maybe most clients are still thinking when they book a balloon artist, they're going to get some guy in the corner making a dog or a sword, but I mean, it's not like that anymore. And I've seen some of your stuff, Matt. The creativity you have is just it's just out of this world, and we've got to talk about your designs. I mean, can you explain, as though I'm a potential customer,
Sure.
your difference?
Well, first of all, I'm not a navel gazing balloon twister, so I'm not going to stand in the corner with my chin on my chest making balloons for the kids and as they line up, handing it to them and watching them dash off. Quite often, with the way I present my balloons, when their child gets the balloon, they stick around to see what the next thing is that's going to come out and to hopefully be part of the performance in producing that next balloon as well. In terms of describing, once again, I think because it's such a visual medium, it's really hard to describe what I do over the phone, and that's why having a handy website there is really good because you can direct people, and most people, when they call you, are in a position where they can pull the website up right in front of themselves while they're on that phone call. So I find having a really high impact website just translates what I'm doing much better than me trying to explain in words. Yeah, sort of. It's a really hard thing to talk about, I suppose. I do try to sell it to the customers, saying that it's not the standard dogs and swords that you may have seen at the markets. It's a lot bigger and better things. It could be anything from sort of a full Iron Man suit to a wearable pair of butterfly wings, all sorts of crazy things. Lots of headbands and wristbands and hair clips are really sort of value adding to the whole balloon twisting experience. But yeah, I find having that fallback of images to look at just really does the sales job for me.
Exactly. And if you're saying that a lot of your customers are people that have seen you before, they've seen the value that you can bring to a party. And it's not just getting a balloon and walking away, but it's more of an interactive experience with your customers and then further interaction with the little children. Once they've got a balloon, they then play and engage with each other in their, Iron Man wearable costume or whatever it is. It must be so hard to get across that value to your clients with just trying to explain it with words. So how have you made your website to have that high impact?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, is I try to make sure that every image, or very close to every image on my website, is either me or a customer and a happy face, rather than just doing balloon after balloon. I see so many sort of competition website where they've got a gallery section, and the gallery is just here's a motorbike I made sitting on my couch, and here's a duck that I made sitting on my couch. And to me, that doesn't translate to a customer what they're going to actually be getting on the day.
So you said you used to do magic. Why did you move on to balloons? What is it about balloons that what is it about balloons?
Well, I've always performed in a bit of a bubble. So when I was doing magic, I didn't really hang out a lot with other magicians. I didn't have a lot of other magician friends. I'd go to the magic club occasionally, but that was back when I was sort of a naive 15-year-old, and here's all these, to be honest with you, quite elderly gentlemen doing card tricks, and it was hard to make any sort of social connection with those guys at that point in my life. So yeah, I just sort of did what I thought you were supposed to do. I read a lot, and I had a lot of tapes and DVDs and stuff that I learnt from. And part of my magic offering was doing dogs and swords and that kind of thing, with balloons at the end of the show. And I suppose, broke the mold of the traditional magician that does dogs and swords at the end. Whereas if a kid would ask me for a rhinoceros, I'd think about it and say, okay, how do I make a rhinoceros? And if the kid asked me for a hippo, I'd think about it and say, how can I make a hippo? And then when I did start socializing with other magicians, realized that's not what they did. The kid would say, I want a hippo. And they go, okay, no worries, there's a dog. And the next kid would say, I want a flower. And they say, fantastic, here's a dog. And yeah, I know magicians who've been in the biz for 30 plus years who only know how to make a dog and a sword, yet they've been doing balloons for as long as they've been doing magic. So a lot of the feedback I was getting from my magician friends is that my balloons were sort of a step above. Then they weren't at the time anything like what I'm doing now, but they were just a step above the norm. So when time came for me to start looking at making entertainment my profession, I had to look at the existing market, and I found there was probably about 30 or 40 magicians operating in Sydney, all doing kids shows, all advertising in the same places. And I just sort of thought to myself, no, this is a really crowded market and I need to find something new to do. So that's where I sort of started exploring more what could be done with the balloons.
And you were speaking about magician clubs, but are you now involved in any kind of similar balloon club?
Yeah, well, it's not so much a balloon club. It's we just call it the Sydney Balloon Twisters. I know it's a very imaginative name. And we meet monthly and do jams. We've got a bunch of events that we do locally. We all try to help each other out and just socialize once a month, get to know each other. It just helps us pass work around and just know who else is out there in the most friendly possible way. I mean, some of my best friends in Sydney are my competition.
Wow. And that would be a challenge then if you're seeing your own competition and seeing what they're doing. I mean, does that spur you both on to create better designs?
I think so. It does. It kicks in that competitive element, and it also takes the heat out of any potential conflicts down the track. So it's a lot easier to approach a conflict of interest with a level head when you know the person who that conflict of interest may arise with. So if a customer of mine chooses to use someone else, it's a lot better that you know who that somebody else is, rather than it being this mysterious, terrible boogeyman that you can't put a face to, who's just come in and stolen work from you. It just helps to, I suppose, just keep everyone on a level head. Not that that happens very often, mind you.
It sounds quite different, really, to be gathering with your fellow competitors and sharing work around. It seems quite unique. I don't know if many industries do this, but it sounds like it could actually be helpful to everyone. And as you said, if any problems arise, it's not just some scary person over there who's taking your job. It's actually a friend, and maybe it's not so bad when it's like that. Not that you want to lose work, of course, but
No, but I mean, we're very lucky in Sydney. There is far more work than any number of us could fill. So when it comes to passing work around, I've got sort of a preset email that's got maybe 5 or 6 other performers that I'm just happy to send the work to if I can't do it, because in a real world we can't take every booking that comes our way.
And I always figure there's plenty of children. There's plenty of children, right? Lots of parties happening, and you take what you can and you do your best job.
Yep. And next year, all the 4-year-olds at the party are turning 5, and they've got their own party. And then a year after that, all the 4-year-olds are turning 5 again. So yeah, no, it's all sort of a really nice sort of self-filling glass, I suppose.
That's right, exactly. Now, Matt, it's not just balloon twisting that you do. You do other forms of balloon work. Can you talk to us a bit about the larger sculpture side of things?
Large sculptures, I have a love-hate relationship with large sculptures, mainly because I've got a very short attention span, and I really love to be able to go out to a gig and just with my wits and my wiles work the gig, especially if it's a twisting gig where I don't really have to prepare anything short of stocking my balloon box. But with the large sculptures, it means that I've got to, I suppose, organise in advance what I need, get all my labour in place if it's going to be a really big sculpture. And so that all sort of kicked off with something that you've probably seen, the big Ninja Turtles that we did, which, to tie that back into the Sydney Balloon Twisters group, was actually the way that group got started. I'd made contact with a couple of balloon twisters in Sydney. And when this Ninja Turtles job came my way, I sort of looked at the scope of what they wanted and just thought to myself, I can't do this by myself. So I put the call out, and basically anyone who'd ever touched a 260, come and help us twist these giant balloon sculptures. So it was a great sort of bonding exercise for everyone in Sydney. And yeah, we really, the group's been so strong since then. And then also since then, I've gotten a lot of large sculptures off the back of those. So anything from giant SpongeBob SquarePants sculptures through to I did a 25-meter long Chinese New Year dragon. I've done a couple of sort of 5-meter high football players, rugby players for the Sydney Waratahs. So there's been a couple of big jobs that way that's come my way. And yeah, it's just a matter of sort of pre-visualizing it, knowing the extent of your balloons and being able to translate what you can create to the customer without necessarily being able to make it there for them. So having a good folio of previous work really helps secure that sort of booking.
And usually a design that you're making with your line work or your children's parties might involve, I don't know, let's say 5 to 10 balloons per sculpture. But these large-scale things, how many balloons would go into making these gigantic creations?
Oh, it's one of those things I don't think we ever really counted. I think we counted the empty bags after the Ninja Turtles, and it was something like, I think it was about 1,400 balloons per sculpture. But like I said, that's going off memory now. It was a few years ago.
Wow.
But yeah, no, physically counting every single balloon was just impossible because we had 13 people just going hell for leather in all the corners of the room. So yeah, we ended up counting the bags, and I think it came to about 1,400 balloons per sculpture.
Wow, that's just incredible. And I've seen that image around the internet here and there. So we'll have to like little put a little picture in the show notes of this podcast so everyone can check it out. It's just it's incredible. It's amazing. It's gigantic. You got to see it.
It was really great too because it was a Tuesday morning that we ended up displaying this stuff. So it wasn't sort of high traffic public area. It was in this weird little corporate park. And Tuesday morning we had all of the corporates, thousands and thousands of these guys working for Commonwealth Bank, just out with their smartphones taking photos. So I think it really worked well for the client because Ninja Turtles just would have been in the Sydney consciousness that day with everyone sharing those photos around.
Wow, what an opportunity. Sounds like you get a lot of enjoyment out of your job as well, not just, making balloons for a living, but also personal enjoyment as well.
Oh yeah, I mean it's the best thing in the world. Every day I wake up, I get to be creative. I never know what the day is going to hold. I did the corporate life for a few months and found out that I absolutely hated having the four walls and the stapler and the tie and the dress pants. It just wasn't me. So yeah, it's a far better life.
Absolutely. And for a creative person, you really get to just go out and do that thing that you're passionate about, do that thing that you're good at. But I need to ask, in terms of your creativity, your designs, again, we'll have to put some photos up in the show notes, being so visual. Your designs are incredible. Do you go through a process of creativity, or, how do you imagine up these new sculptures that we haven't seen before?
Well, there's a number of different ways I go about it. Sometimes I'll get an idea of what I want something to look at before I even pick up a balloon. And sometimes I'll just be playing with a balloon and come up with a weird new shape and then look at it from different angles and try to figure out what can I do with that. Sometimes you add two things together. And I basically sit there with balloons and try to do something that's never been done before. And if I can do that, that just means that I've got this whole new shape that I can then work with and turn into something amazing that people haven't seen before. And the prime stuff that I love to do is really balloon twisting for the balloon industry, which I know is sort of self-defeating because the balloon industry doesn't pay my bills. But if I can come up with a sculpture that people can't reverse engineer, I get a real kick out of that.
And I can tell you I've experienced that. I've seen Matt's balloons and I certainly can't figure out how on earth he has done it. He made this incredible gorilla that I saw recently and it just blew my mind. I have no idea how he made it. Maybe I'm secretly just trying to find out now so I can figure it out myself.
Well, you'll be happy to know that the gorilla video is going to be taught in a keep up video very soon, my new little gorilla design, after a little bit of refinement.
Oh, yes, that's great news. Great news for the balloon artists out there. And you were talking about creating your own sculptures, trying to think something up that's never been done before. Well, what about someone who is just beginning? Could you recommend any way that they could get to that level where they're ready to just make things up by themselves? Do you have any tips or tricks for that kind of crowd?
I actually think people who are just beginning are in a very unique situation to not know the limits of the balloons that they're working with. And this goes for everything as well. This goes for magic. It goes for all sorts of entertaining. One of the worst things that we do to ourselves as entertainers is we get ourselves set in our ways where we've already pre-decided what is and isn't worth trying. Whereas a newbie in the industry doesn't know that you can't twist a balloon in a certain way. So they're going to try it and they might have success or they might have failure, but either way, they're going to discover something that the more advanced balloon twisters would just write off straight away. So yeah, I really like putting different shapes of balloons in front of new people. I suppose that's the one thing that new people are limited by is they tend to stick to the 260. But when you give them the hearts and the mouse heads and the rounds and all the weird and wonderful shapes that we can get hold of, newbies tend to do different things that the more experienced people wouldn't have thought of. And, whether it turns out good, great, or whether it turns out horrible, it's still it's still just something that we've decided can't be done, if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. And I see what you mean. As a new person, they don't have those limitations yet that we have put upon ourselves. A 260, the long twisting balloon, you must do this, you must do that. And so we are sometimes limited in our creativity. But as you say, you get a new person and they do something so strange to the balloon, but they might create a result that we could never think of trying because to us that was just out of the picture.
It's actually one of the reasons why at jams I like to sit next to the new people at the jams, just because they've always got a really different way of looking at things.
Speaking of jams, I have noticed that the Sydney Balloon Twisting Jam tends to go by a certain theme. How do you find that stokes the creativity?
Oh, it's I suppose just jumpstarts things. So we do a monthly jam. It's actually tonight is our jam. So after this podcast, I'm going to run off to the jam. This week's jam is licensed characters. I think next month, I think the theme is just the word black. So it just, I suppose, kickstarts creativity and gives you something to start with, because I think the hardest thing about walking into a restaurant full of 16 balloon twisters is just thinking to myself, well, what can I start with? How do I start? How do I begin?
Matt, do you have, I guess, a written down repertoire of balloons, or how do you decide what you're going to make when you're out on a job, given you know so many designs?
Well, I follow the Buster Balloon technique, where I don't necessarily give every child the option of what they are to have. I will always twist a surprise where I can. And the way I sort of work that in is I prep the kids before I open the balloon box. Okay, kids, tell them the rules, no touching the balloons. Everyone gets one balloon each. I'm going to choose the next child to go based on their manners, which is a really handy trick because them all become really well behaved if they think that good manners is going to get them next. And then the final rule I say is, don't tell me the balloon that you want to get. I'm going to make everyone an amazing surprise, because you guys don't know all the cool stuff that I can make. So you might ask for a sword and I might want to make you a jetpack. Or, a little girl might want a puppy dog, whereas I might want to make her an elephant standing on a ball, balancing on a headband on top of her head. Lots of different things that they won't know that they can get. So if I say that loud enough with the parents in earshot, they completely understand that, they get that. Of course, if there's the little young one who has their heart set on something, you just make that and you get them out of the way, much in the way magicians, if they come across a table doing close-up that aren't having fun, you just finish up at that table and find someone you can have more fun with. So that's the way I try to work the balloons. And then, it's just a matter of looking at the child, reading the sort of personality they've got, asking them a couple of questions, and then usually you can start to piece together what's going to be the right balloon for that kid.
That sounds really clever, because then even children that are not involved, they're watching and they want to know what you're going to make. Your potential clients, the parents who might want to pay for you another day, can see how amazing you are at working on the spot. And then the children get something really personalized. I mean, that sounds brilliant.
Yeah, and you find it so much more engaging. It's actually one of the worst things that I accidentally do sometimes is give away what the balloon's going to be before I'm finished. So as soon as the kids spot something that gives away what that character is, if they guess it's a dog and you say yes, just watch all the kids suddenly become disinterested. Okay, we know it's a dog now. What's the next one going to be? Whereas keeping that mystery there, I like to call it the Mr. Squiggle approach to balloon twisting, which if there's any internationals watching, just Google Mr. Squiggle and see what I mean. He never gave away what the image was until the very, very end. And then usually there was a surprise, turns it upside down or adds one final detail to bring everything together. And I just find that that's such a great way to keep everyone's interest, including the parents.
Absolutely. Do you find that while you are entertaining the children that you get a lot of parents interested?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even during my show, one of my big magic influences was a guy called David Ginn. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of David Ginn. But David Ginn, in a lot of his books, talks about what he calls groaners, which are very, 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 very bad jokes thrown in for the benefit of the adults. And I try to do that a lot. Obviously, not quite so bad jokes. I try to put in, bad jokes as well as good jokes, as well as very subtle, not rude innuendo jokes, but jokes that are aimed for the parents that will go over the kids' heads. Because I find that the parents are the ones booking back. So if I can entertain the parents, the kids are going to, let's be honest, I mean, you could get the navel-gazing balloon twister in the corner of the room, and the kids will run around and play with their balloons, so the party will be a success. But that balloon twister is suddenly interchangeable with any other balloon twister in that style, whereas if you can make a connection with the adults, suddenly it doesn't go to let's get a balloon twister for Jimmy's party, it goes to let's get Matt Falloon for Jimmy's party because he had so much fun, and you're not instantly replaceable.
So clever. And you're really working on multiple levels. So you've got the actual balloon that you're making, you're engaging the parents, you're engaging the children. You're not even just working to the person in front of you. You're interacting with, a bunch of kids. You're really working on multiple levels there. And it sounds like it works really well.
Yeah, well, I'm finding great success with it, and the bookings keep coming in, so I'm doing something right.
Yeah, got to be doing something right. Now, Matt, you also sell a few products, or you've pioneered some products specific for the balloon artists. Can you tell us a bit about those products?
Yeah, so obviously being a full-time entertainer, one of my big concerns is paying the bills every week. And while I do very well out of my children's parties, I really am conscious to have multiple income streams, which has spurred me to make DVDs, digital downloads, and also products now. So basically the products were me looking for a hole in the market and thinking, how can I do that better? And I think once again, this whole, because I am quite new in the industry, I know that people know me now, but I've only been in the industry for 4 to 5 years. When I first came in, I looked at the way everyone was doing stuff and thought, well, would I do it that way? Do I do it that way because it's done that way, or is there a better way to do it? So the first thing I came up with was a balloon roll, whereas a lot of people use neoprene sheets or plastic sheets with rubber bands to hold their balloons into a cylinder. I actually managed to find this nylon fabric that has its own self-curl to it, and if sort of treated and cut properly, it will wrap around a bundle of, let's say, 5260s and really lock those balloons in. And as you draw each balloon out, it sort of self-tightens down, so you don't end up with a whole bunch of balloons falling down through the middle of this loose plastic cylinder, which was the previous solution. The other thing that used to drive me absolutely insane was these belt cutters, which when they went blunt, you threw them away. And in Australia, a belt cutter is anywhere from $9 to $15. I believe there are some sort of cheaper Chinese ones that you can buy for less than that, but they still all had that same problem. When they went blunt, you throw them in the bin and get yourself another one. So I came up with, actually did a lot of research, had to think about it, and ended up buying myself a 3D printer. And I actually manufacture all of the replaceable blade belt cutters that I sell right here in my study. I just set the printer off, and it takes about 24 hours to do a run of 12 belt cutters, and they're now being sold all over the world. And with the idea that you only need to buy one, and you can just keep replacing the blade over and over and over again, keeps the cost really low for us, and just stops that whole frustration of getting to a gig and having a belt cutter that's so blunt it almost pulls your pants down.
That would probably, not be such a good idea.
I'm sure you could work it into the act somehow.
Maybe. We want to try and keep our working with children checks on us. And for people that may not know, there are certain ways that you can pack your balloons. So when you take it to a job, you don't just have a bag full of assorted colours and shapes and sizes of balloons, but you can get belts where you can wear the balloons around your waist, or you can custom fit out like a craft trolley or some kind of container setup where you have the balloons sitting upright in something like Matt Falloon's balloon roll. And it just means that going to a job, you've just got all the balloons ready to go. Just for people that may not know how the setup looks. And same with the balloon cutter. Often when you're making designs, you do have to break balloons. You may only need a small part of a balloon, so that's where the balloon cutters come in. You don't have to get out scissors or try and do it with your nails.
And it becomes a really natural motion where your hands just drop to your belt or to your pocket, and you can just trim that extra bit of balloon off. And it's actually one of those unexpected wow moments is when you do trim a balloon off quickly so that the audience don't see exactly what you've done. they can't believe, they think you've snapped this balloon in half or you've done something. It's a really funny, unexpected, magical moment for the audience. Every time people are wowed by it, it sort of makes me giggle.
Getting the wow factor, that's definitely another good way to be getting bookings. And I know previously, Matt, you've spoken about getting the wow factor when even doing like a restaurant job. You said that you've had people give a big applause throughout the whole restaurant. How on earth would you do something like that?
Well, once again, my experience with restaurants came from my experience doing close-up magic at restaurants. And I used to do magic sort of to fill in for a good friend of mine out on the Sydney Showboat, which is a paddle steamer that goes around Sydney Harbour, and they do magic and they do a cabaret show. And when I first started doing the job, it was my first restaurant gig, and I'd had trouble getting around to as many tables as I would have liked to within the allotted time. And one of the techniques that I came up with was trying to sort of band 4 or 5 tables together and treat them as one big audience rather than treating each table as its individual little stage and spectators. Try to get a bigger group happening. And I really have brought that into to the balloon stuff. And it's an amazing reaction when you can get a whole quarter of a restaurant giving you a round of applause for creating something no bigger than your thumb out of balloons. It's an amazing moment. And yeah, I think drawing as many people into the process as you can is really important for that.
Making a balloon no bigger than your thumb. What do you mean when you talk about that?
I've been playing around a lot with, it's a very, very old idea of making every sculpture that you already make out of 160s, which is the next size balloon down to 260s. And it really does make everything cute. You can make a tiny little sausage dog or a tiny little mouse. So I've taken that idea and tried to develop a whole bunch of sculptures and techniques that work really well on small scale. That's my most recent DVD is called Picos. They're really tiny little balloon sculptures that you can put together in a couple of minutes just from scraps. And yeah, they're tiny little things. I'd mount them on hair clips usually and just clip them up in someone's hair. And bringing in that entertainment process that I learnt from doing magic and applying it to a tiny little balloon means that you can have the audience being curious as to what's going on. And then you can have all the jokes that the balloon twisters do. And then you can have this magic moment of revealing this tiny little penguin or turtle or whatever it might be. And just knowing how to milk those magic moments, which I think does come from the magic world. I don't know if anyone's really teaching that in the balloon world.
Sounds really strange and interesting. I mean, these days I would have thought that everyone's trying to make the biggest, most amazing sculpture. You know, how many balloons can I put in this? That's going to be so impressive. And here comes Matt Falloon making a little teeny tiny penguin, and that's getting a standing ovation in a restaurant. What?
Well, it's all, once again, it's what I was saying to you before about choosing the right balloon for the right person. If you work restaurants, you know that you're going to get the kids who are really enthusiastic, really excited to be there. You make them something huge, you make them something crazy, but then you're going to get the awkward teenage sister who is sort of on the fringe of, does she want something, does she not want something? You don't want to embarrass her because they're very fragile at that age, but you don't want them to miss out. And so to be able to put something together that's really classy, really cute, and really special for that kid, it's great for the grandmas, you know. Sure, you might want to put a fantastic, great big hat on grandma's head, but the only person who won't be amused by that's going to be grandma, and you really want everyone to be happy. So yeah, I've found that these tiny little sculptures are just so perfect for that situation. Don't get me wrong, I still do the giant sculptures as well, but yeah, it's just having the right tools in the toolbox for everyone.
Sounds like you've given this whole thing a whole lot of thought. So you're not just twisting a balloon, you're entertaining your crowd, and you're really changing it up depending on who it is that's in front of you, whether it might be a little kid who, yeah, you just make them whatever they want, get them away having fun. And then you've got, a kid that might really love having something humongous. And then you've also got these teeny tiny things which are going to work for someone else as well. There's really something for everyone in the entertainment that you're doing, and it sounds really cool.
And I should say as well that I haven't pioneered a lot of these techniques. A lot of these techniques are sort of well known and being taught by the likes of Buster Balloon, really teaching the entertainment value, not just the actual sculpture itself. And I think the more people that can jump onto that style of twisting, the better the industry is going to be for all of us.
Absolutely. And Matt, look, we're coming towards the end of our chat. It's been really, really cool having you on the Kids Entertainer Hub podcast. Can you share at all what's coming for you in the future? Do you have any future plans from now?
Oh gosh, I've always got something else on the burn. My immediate future involves building a new balloon rig for myself because I've outgrown my last one. So I'll make sure I post lots of videos about that if people are interested. It's going to have lights. It's going to have a music system. It's going to have a tablet PC built into it, so I can Google things and take photos without pulling my phone out. So that's going to probably occupy the next few weeks of my time, and then jumping into my third DVD, which is going to be called 50 Shades of Frumple, which is a pretty catchy name, I think.
Frumple?
So yeah, the Frumple twist is a sort of rarely used technique, which I've been using a lot, and it seems to be a lot of people sort of see it as what Matt Falloon does is lots of frumple twists. So yeah, taking those weirder sort of obscure techniques and bringing them to the fore and showing you some really great simple sculptures you can do utilizing these techniques to get a different shape.
Wow. Matt, an absolute pioneer of the industry. I love speaking to you and finding out what you're doing because it opens my mind and makes me go, oh my goodness, there's so much that I can learn from you and so much that I can take just from this chat. So thanks so much. Really appreciate your time and yeah, hope to see you another time.
My pleasure. Thanks very much, Michelle.
Great. All right. See you then.
See you later.